Of course, here's a rewritten version of your text, keeping the meaning intact, but improving flow and clarity. Fever, friend or foe? When we feel feverish, our first instinct is often to take medication to lower the temperature. But is that always a wise decision? Fever, in fact, is one of the oldest and most effective defenses our bodies have against disease. But what exactly is fever? How does it strengthen our immune system? And should we always suppress it? The heat of life on Earth thrives within a narrow temperature range, from around -10 degrees Celsius in icy pools to 120 degrees Celsius near thermal vents. Step outside this window for too long and life ceases. Every living organism, animal, plant, or microbe, has an ideal temperature where its internal processes function best, and a range where survival becomes difficult but not impossible. Humans, as warm-blooded creatures, maintain a steady internal temperature around 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. While keeping this temperature stable requires a lot of energy, it provides a remarkable advantage. It protects us from certain deadly invaders, especially fungi. Many cold-blooded animals are vulnerable to fungal infections, but most fungi can't survive the heat inside our bodies. This brings us to fever. For pathogens trying to invade, your body is a world to conquer. Fever acts like an internal climate shift, pushing them outside their comfort zone, making conditions hostile for their survival. This ancient defense mechanism has existed for at least 600 million years and is seen. Across the animal kingdom, fish seek warmer waters, reptiles bask in the sun, bees heat their hives, and mammals like us can increase internal heat dramatically. When your blood turns into lava, imagine you're attacked by bacteria and viruses simultaneously. Your body needs to respond fast. Fever becomes part of your first line of defense, activated by molecules known as pyrogens, the makers of heat. These travel to your brain and trigger your hypothalamus, your internal thermostat, to raise your body temperature. You start to shiver as your muscles rapidly contract to generate heat. Blood vessels near the surface constrict, reducing heat loss through your skin. On the outside, you feel cold, but inside, your core temperature climbs. Fever is a full-body response that requires significant energy. For every degree Celsius your temperature rises, your body burns about 10% more calories just to sustain itself. Fever also makes you feel fatigued, encouraging rest and conserving energy for your immune system to fight effectively. Meanwhile, the invading bacteria are in full-blown attack mode, multiplying rapidly to overwhelm you. But this intense reproduction requires enormous resources and puts them under immense stress. It's like running a marathon while trying to eat a huge meal and give birth at the same time. The last thing they need is even more stress. Your immune system adds to their misery by triggering inflammation, flooding infected tissues with immune cells and fluids to attack and contain the invaders. Fever amplifies this assault, making the internal environment increasingly inhospitable for pathogens. If you want, I can continue the rewrite for the rest of your text too, shall I? Here's a rewritten version of your next section. It's keeping the meaning but improving clarity, flow, and engagement. Attack on the invaders for invading bacteria. Fever creates a nightmare. Moments ago, your body was a comfortable environment. Now, it's unbearably hot. The rising heat begins to break down their proteins, rupture their membranes, damage their DNA, and disrupt their ability to function. They're overwhelmed by the stress. But what about your own cells? Aren't they affected too? Yes, fever stresses your cells as well. Most of your organs and systems work less efficiently during fever. But there's one major exception: your immune system. Fever supercharges it. Neutrophils arrive more quickly. Macrophages and dendritic cells become more aggressive, devouring pathogens more effectively. Killer cells become even better at destroying infected targets. Fever also deprives invaders of vital resources. Your immune system hoards key nutrients, like iron, glucose, and glutamine, turning the battlefield into a nutritional wasteland. Starving, overheated, and under constant attack, the microbes struggle to survive. Viruses suffer. Even more viruses are even more vulnerable to heat than bacteria. Take the rhinovirus, which causes the common cold. It mainly infects your upper respiratory tract, because that area is cooler than the rest of your body even without fever. When your core temperature rises, these viruses face hostile conditions. Far beyond their tolerance, infected cells, overwhelmed by viral replication, suffer too. Under heat stress, they produce huge quantities of heat shock proteins, HSPs, to try and repair the damage. But this survival strategy backfires. When cells produce excessive HSPs, it's a distress signal to your immune system. Natural killer cells and killer T cells are drawn to these signals, identifying which cells are failing and swiftly destroying them along with the viruses inside. In trying to save themselves, infected cells inadvertently mark themselves for death. Outsmarting evolution. If fever is so effective, why haven't microbes simply adapted to it over millions of years? Surprisingly, fever may actually outsmart evolution. It's microbes that survive fever temporarily adapt to higher temperatures, but this comes with a cost. After leaving one host, they must infect new victims whose healthy body temperatures are cooler. Now, their heat adaptations become a disadvantage compared to their non-adapted cousins, who are better suited to infect healthy hosts. This creates a tricky evolutionary dilemma. Adapt to fever and struggle to infect new hosts. Stay vulnerable to fever, but spread more easily. Some viruses, like measles, have developed a different strategy: hit and run. Measles replicates explosively and becomes most infectious just before your full immune response and fever kick in. Once your defense is mobilized, the virus is beaten back, but often not, before it has already spread to new victims. Should you fight fever with medication? Given how powerful fever is, why do we often try to suppress it? Modern medicine makes it easy to grab a pill for fever or pain, but this is a very recent luxury in human history. Over-the-counter drugs like aspirin, ibuprofen, and paracetamol have only been widely accessible for about a century. We've grown accustomed to the idea that pain and fever are problems to be eliminated. But in reality, symptoms like pain and fatigue are part of your immune system's design, signals to rest, conserve energy, and let your body heal, because painkillers often double as fever reducers. It's common for people, especially concerned parents, to suppress fever at the first sign, sometimes mistaking it as harmful in itself. However, for most healthy individuals, fevers below 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, are not dangerous and do not need treatment. In fact, allowing a moderate fever to run its course may help your immune system work more efficiently. Of course, there are exceptions. Certain groups like pregnant women, elderly people, or patients with serious underlying conditions may not tolerate fever well. For anyone, fevers above 40 degrees Celsius can be dangerous, usually indicating a malfunction in your body's temperature regulation and require medical intervention. In some cases, like influenza or chickenpox, studies suggest that using fever-reducing medication doesn't actually speed up recovery. But this introduces complicated ethical questions. When is it appropriate to allow discomfort for the sake of immune efficiency? And when is it necessary to intervene for safety or comfort? If you'd like, I can continue rewriting the remaining part as well. Shall I proceed? That make clinical trials difficult. In one study, doctors gave strong anti-fever treatment to critical care patients, but had to stop after mortality shot up. Overall, we have strong indications that more people may survive serious infectious diseases better with a fever, and there is very little clinical evidence that stopping fever leads to better health outcomes. But there are important exceptions, like neurological injuries and stroke. We definitely need a lot more research, so should you fight fever? Well, speak to your doctor and don't listen to internet videos. But this decision is really about payoffs. If a fever is not dangerously and you can bear it, you are supporting your defenses and may even get healthy a bit faster. But if you feel really bad and are healthy in general, taking a pill against pain and fever will make you feel better quicker, at the cost of a slightly less effective immune defense. However you decide, the next time you are burning up and feeling bad, you can rest easy in the knowledge that your enemies are having a much worse time than you. OOOH sponsoring it. Thanks to doctors and researchers that we have these insights. We're just doing our part by bringing them to you. If you are also aiming to make a positive difference in the world, where should you start? Today's sponsor, 80,000 Hours, can help you with that decision. 80,000 Hours is a non-profit career advice organization that wants to help people find fulfilling careers that also do a lot of good in the world. And their advice is free, without any hidden cost or fee later on, like us. They care a lot about making sure their work is based on the best available evidence and consultation with experts. So they've spent the last decade compiling and conducting research into topics like how much impact can one person actually have, and what are the best ways to make a positive difference on important global issues. Turns out following a well-known career path isn't your only option to achieve that goal. In fact, there may be many paths that make an even bigger difference in the world that you may not have even heard of. The time you'll spend on your career is probably your biggest opportunity to have an impact. If you want to make the most of it, join the newsletter now and get a free copy off